Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Over the Cup podcast, a Formula One podcast for fans old and new by Formula One fans old and new. This is the cost cap edition. It is just me today, and the FIA has finally completed their review of the 2021 financial regulations, and this is what the FIA has said. Aston Martin Aramco Cognizant Formula One team is considered to be in procedural breach of the financial regulations. Oracle Red Bull Racing is considered to be in procedural and minor overspend breaches of the financial regulations. And Williams Racing has complied with the financial regulation in respect of the 2021 reporting period, with the exception of a previous procedural breach in regard to which the cost cap administration entered into an ABA with Williams in May 2022. This procedural breach was then remediated by Williams in a timely, cooperative, and transparent manner. Okay, so what does this mean? This means that Aston Martin has done some administrative blunder in their reporting or forms or whatever is the process. So, out of the 10 teams that participated in F1 in 2021, 9 have stuck to the cost cap. Red Bull has, of course, overspent, but it's a minor overspend, which means that it is up to 5% of the total budget, which was 145 million, which comes somewhere around to 7 million. Now, what do we know? What do we not know? We do not know how much Red Bull has spent, and we do not know where Red Bull has spent those things, that extra money. Of course, there are apparently rumors that Red Bull has spent that amount of money in catering, and it is being reported that the amount that they have spent is between 1 to 2 million. um, but I mean, this is all rumors. First, second, I from my understanding of the regulations, I don't think catering and absenteeism. So it was like catering and absenteeism is where they have actually overspent. I don't think catering has been specified in the exceptions, but absenteeism is obviously not covered under the cost cap. So since the FIA has not actually revealed where the spending has taken place, nor have they specified how much they have overspent by. We are not going to speculate on that. There are, of course, rumors, but I'm not going to talk about that. Now, minor financial regulation breach, minor spend breach. What can happen to Red Bull now? According to the regulations, they can be punished, or the penalty or punishment given to them could be one or more of the following. One, there can be a public reprimand. Second, a deduction of constructor championship points awarded for the championship that took place within the reporting period of the breach, which would be 2021. Then it could be deduction of drivers' championship points awarded for the championship that took place within the reporting period of the breach, which is again 2021. Suspension from one or more stages of a competition or competitions, excluding for the avoidance of doubt the race itself. Now, I am not clear if this is going to be from the 2021 season, or if it is about the future seasons or like the current season. So I'm not sure if the FIA does decide to do a suspension for Red Bull, if it is going to be for the previous season or if it is going to be for this season. So we don't know. The FIA has not yet decided, and they have not yet communicated what the appropriate penalty for Red Bull is going to be. Um, So what else? And the last thing that can happen is limitations on ability to conduct aerodynamic or other testing and or reduction of the cost cap, provided that the reduction specified shall only be applied with respect to the year following the punishment being handed out. So this means that if the FIA decide to do this, um, they can limit their cost cap, or they can reduce their cost cap for 2023 season, because the punishment is being handed out in 2022, and so the restriction or the reduction in cap will occur for the 2023 season. um, of course, there was already rumors around the paddock that Aston Martin and Red Bull were the two teams who have been in the breach of the regulations, and yeah, a lot of team principals and drivers and everybody and journalists and everybody made comments about that. Christian Horner had, of course, said that they know for a fact that they did not overspend, and he also called comments made by other team principals as deflammatory, and um, I mean, now it's true, and Christian Horner and I mean Red Bull has, of course, released a statement post that, and they said that it is shocking to them, shocking and disappointing, I think is the word they used. um I mean, of course, we will find out. Okay, I have the statement. So, Red Bull's statement was: we note the findings by the FIA of minor overspend breaches of the financial regulations with surprise and disappointment. Our 2021 submission was below the cost cap limit, so we need to carefully review the FIA's findings, as our belief remains that the relevant costs are under the 2021 cost cap amount. Despite the conjecture and positioning of others, there is, of course, a process under the regulations which with the FIA which we will respectfully follow while we consider all the options available to us. So this is what Red Bull has said. From what I know, I think what will happen now is that the FIA is going to suggest Red Bull that these are the actions we are going to take against you with respect to the breach that you have done. And Red Bull has the option to either accept it or not accept it, and in that case it will go in front of a panel, and then a hearing would take place, and then the punishment would be given out. So as expected, Twitter is going crazy, and now I know those of you who do listen to us, um you know that we are a pro Mercedes podcast. And of course, since the year of evaluation is 2021, and it was one of the closest championship battles that we've seen in a very, very, very long time. um, I will not have make any comments on what the FIA should do. I think there are people far more competent than me who can decide what the course of action should be, which is saying something, uh, looking at what we have been seeing from the FIA. But I am still going to put my trust in the process, and I'm still going to wait for whatever it is that the FIA decides to do. Um, of course, when the financial regulations were put in place, Ross Brawn had said in an interview that if you breach the financial regulations, you lose your championship. So, and I mean, if for even for minor expense, the regulations do specify that the team that has breached can lose points in both the championships. So let's see what the FIA decides to do. 2021 was already very very controversial ending to the season, given given what happened in Abu Dhabi. And I think we've spoken enough about it, and I really don't want to comment any more on that. Um, but why I think that it is important for FIA to set a precedent to severely punish Red Bull. They can decide what punishment they want to give to Red Bull. I'm not going to sit here and advocate mm, taking away their championship, or whatever everybody on Twitter is saying. So I'm not gonna sit here and do that. As much as I would have wanted Lewis Hamilton to win his eighth championship, um, I'm gonna leave that for the FIA. But the cost cap regulations were put in place because the FIA wanted to make sure that the teams with that have much more spending capacity, teams like Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, McLaren, they obviously have a lot more money compared to teams like Haas or Williams or Sauber, not Sauber, it's Alfa Romeo now. So I mean, before the cost cap was implemented, of course, these teams, the bigger teams, were spending north of 400 million on their spending, and the smaller teams, their budget was pretty much similar to what the cost cap is right now. If you remember in Drive to Survive, one of the first episodes in which Claire Williams appears in the series, she does talk about how difficult it is for for a smaller team like Williams to kind of spend that kind of money when Mercedes and Ferrari and Red Bull and all the bigger teams have much more spending capacity. So of course it was to bring the teams closer, and to ensure that the bigger teams are not just throwing money and taking away championships, and of course the prize money that does come with it. So I will. I think that the FIA needs to set a precedent that is severe enough that it does not encourage any further breaches from this season onwards or from the next season onwards. I mean, I don't know how much of spending has already been done by teams, so but like at least the FIA has a chance here to set a, a a severe enough precedent of uh, punishing the teams that do breach the regulations, so as to make sure that none of the other teams who can spend that sort of money, they should have a fear that if they do get caught, and they will, um they should stand to lose more in overspending than not. So we, like, the FIA has not given any specific date or time as to when they will actually tell what the appropriate actions against Red Bull Racing and Aston Martin are going to be. Um, but let's hope whatever the FIA decides to do, I think it should be. I think it should just be severe enough. It should be severe enough as to not encourage the teams to do this in the future. What I hope does not happen is Red Bull get away with a financial penalty, because obviously we are talking about a team that has overspent money. Now, of course, like, a financial penalty would be like millions and millions of dollar, but like they obviously do have the spending capacity. Like, if before the financial regulations they were spending um 300 $400 million on developing their car and everything, I don't think giving them a financial penalty of 100 million, 150 million, which I think is the last time when McLaren was punished during the Spygate scandal. They were they were given 100 million fine. So I don't think that solves anything, because obviously these teams have the option of spending that extra 7 million and then paying the fine of whatever hundreds of millions that will be levied upon them by the FIA. So um, I will just hope that it's not just a financial penalty. Um, so we'll see. Of course, there has been no timeline given by the FIA, which in and of itself is frustrating. I mean, given that the FIA has had, so from what I know, is that the submissions of all the financial documents and forms and whatever it is that the teams are supposed to give to the FIA was done in March. And of course, we have received the information of the findings of the audit process that happened in October, which is already what, 7 months after the submissions were made. Um, and even after 7 months, we have received half information. We don't know how much exactly the amount is. We don't know where that amount was spent, and we don't know what the further action is going to be against Red Bull. So that in and of itself is a little disappointing. I thought that when FIA would finally release their findings, I think we would have closure at least on that part. But what it has done is just opened another can of worms for the legitimacy of the 2021 title. And I mean, it's just not good for the sport. So we will have to wait and see what the FI decides to do. Um, Of course, there is a lot of discussion on this going on Twitter and Sky, and I mean, of course, in the US, on the weekend of, so like next weekend when the teams and the drivers do reach Austin for the US GP, there will be multiple questions in the meetup and this and that, and we will get to hear or not get to hear what people think. But um it it just needs to be rectified as soon as possible. It is just not helping. Like the FIA incompetence is again at play here. Like the FIA, I would have been okay if the FIA took another week to delay their findings, just so that it could just give us closure on what has happened. So that you tell us what happened, you tell us where it happened, how it happened, blah blah blah, and then you tell what is what is the penalty for it, what is the punishment for it, and just end that title. Because of course the team has the option to either accept or not accept that punishment, right? And then if they don't, they can go ahead and have a hearing in front of a panel. So it's not like had the FIA given a final verdict, that would have been it. Uh, I mean, Red Bull would have had the option to question or whatever. So I think the FIA could have taken a little bit more time and just done it and just ended this, because it's just getting tiring now. And I know in the past there have been a lot of scandals, and there have been a lot of loopholes that the teams have discovered. My team being one of them. I mean, with the task system and everything. Um, I can sit here and say that just because things that have happened badly in the past, it does not mean that we should not correct ourselves now. I can sit here on my high horse and say all these things, but um, that's why I said I'm not going to comment on what the FIA should do. I think it's up to them, and despite myself, I am going to trust in the FIA and wait for them to give their verdict. But it's not a good look for the sport. They need to make sure that um, a severe enough punishment is given for it, because like in this week when we've had the news that Red Bull has done a minor overspend, we've also had news that the W Series is getting cancelled because they don't have funding. So, like the irony of the situation should not be lost on anybody. And if after all of this, if Red Bull gets away with it, I mean, of course they will get away with it. I mean, if the FIA does not do anything, we can't do anything except be angry on Twitter. Um, but it just it is going to set a very bad precedent for the sport. Then the financial regulation might not as well be there, because if it is just going to be a farce, there's no point doing it. And uh, I also think that this is too late. Like even with what happened in Abu Dhabi and everything, I think 15 days after that, or even immediately after that, when Mercedes was deciding to appeal and everything, um the entire argument was that, oh, the celebrations have been done, it would not be right to take the championship away from Max, and all these sort of things. So now this thing coming out 10 months after we've closed 2021 chapter, however controversially, I think the FIU also needs to speed up the process. And I don't know why it does not happen this way, okay? Because I'm sure it happens everywhere in any other organization, not in a racing team, but at any other organization, the finance department is they work the entire year, right? Um, why can't the FIA ask the teams to propose a plan, and then on a monthly or on a quarterly basis, just ask them for what their actual spendings have been? And if they're doing it on a quarterly basis, so let's say if you're doing from Jan to December, so in April you get the spending for the first quarter and so on, right? You still have 2 months of time to validate the spendings of a quarter. And what happens is that before going into the next season, we will have the findings of the cost. Once the season is done, any spending that is being done after that is going to go into 2022, is my understanding. I don't know if that is true or not, but why can't it be done in real time? Why is it taking the FIA 10 months to validate the spendings of 10 teams, right? I think it's not just about what action the FIA decides to do now. It's also about making sure that the process is robust enough that we get these decisions quickly, right? um Now, I'm not saying that this is going to happen every single time, of course. That's my entire argument for setting a serious enough precedence for any team that has been in breach of the financial regulations. But we can't keep on having these reveals 10 9 10 months after a championship has been finished. you know we've we've had a driver champion, we've had a constructor champion, and we are we have already we are already decided on who the 2022 champion is going to be, and we are still talking about the 2021 season, which, to be very honest, we've talked about enough. And y- the FI needs to put in systems in place so that these things are resolved quicker. The findings for which team has been in breach or has followed the financial regulations should be completed before the next season starts. And I mean, it's the FIA who decides the calendar, right? So the FIA knows when the next season is going to start. Sure, don't consider the season start to be the preseason testing. Consider it to be the first race, so you get another extra month to work on whatever it is that you want to do for the findings. But I I think, and I should hope so, that this is a practice that does not become common, getting a result of what the financial um adherence has been 9 10 months after a championship is done. Because if the FIA um uh, is so if if they don't want to change a championship um after any point of time that has passed after uh, whatever decision has been made, or whoever has won the championship or whatever, Rosbron's entire threat of, you break the regulation and you lose your championship, it just does not make sense. Because the FIA's argument is, oh, we are done with that season, the championship has been decided, just that you're never going to find, it's never going to happen. And I mean, it's obviously, even with the method, quote unquote, that I am um, recommending, or I'm hoping is getting followed, the result will again come 3 months after. But I think it would be much more easier for the FIA to know if somebody is going to be in breach of these regulations, right? Because if you think about it, if if by the end of the third quarter, let's say there are three teams who have spent up to 130 mil, and then they are going to tell you what their plan for the remaining 15 mil is, the FIA is still going to have a much better idea of um, who are the teams that are more prone to cross those financial gaps, right? Um, because that's like, anybody would do financial planning like that, right? You take that 145 million, you divide this much goes into powertrains, this much goes into aero, this is what goes into R&D, this is what is going to go for the salaries, this that, and then this is what we are earmarking for incidents. And then as the season unfolds, you're going to have your margins come up, right? So a team like Haas, if they earmarked for 10 crashes, but they've had 12, they will have to move some money from some other department to to keep it for crashes. And a team like Mercedes, who only had what, two crashes in Austria qualifying and George's crash in Silverstone. Other than that, this season, I don't think they've had any other crashes. So they don't need to keep that big a budget for making repairs, or even Red Bull for that matter. They've not had a lot of crashes. Mm, But there are teams like Renault who had to have multiple engines because their engines have failed, or Alfa Romeo. So, I mean, of course, you're going to get a this is how it's going to go, right? So you are going to move around whatever it is that you've thought you'll spend on something, and as and when the season unfolds, your spending capacity on under different headers is going to change. Why can't FIA just keep a track of it on a quarterly basis? So every quarter you give a plan of what your spending this quarter is going to be, and then when once the quarter is done, you know what your actuals are, and so you submit those actuals, and then the FIA has 2 months to validate whatever is the process that they're using to validate. They have 2 months to validate. So by the time they get the the spendings of each team for the second quarter, they've already established and they already know how much each team has spent in the first quarter and how much is left for them to spend for the remaining of the season. uh like in my head, on paper at least, I think the system works. Maybe people who have better knowledge than me would be able to tell me why this is not a system that would work. But I think this should help in getting results faster. So yeah, I think I've rambled on long enough. So yeah, we wait for the FIA to give their decisions. In the meantime, please reach out to us and tell us what you feel should happen on the cost cap front. Um, Thank you for listening to this ramble. And if you like the episode, please like, share, subscribe to our podcast. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, wherever, whatever your preferred place of listening is. Do leave comments or do reach out to us on our Instagram or Twitter, and tell us what you feel about the cost cap, um, the cost cap thing, and what do you think should happen. uh, I mean, that's all we can do right now, right? All we can do is speculate. Um so yeah, reach out, write to us. Thank you for listening. And until Mexico, I mean, we've already said in our last episode we will not be doing the USGP review because it's our Diwali, it's Christmas for us. So um I shouldn't say that. It's Diwali. It's a very important festival for us. All of us are going to be busy celebrating with our families, and I'm traveling. So yeah, there's not going to be a US GP review. And yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this ramble. I would not even call it an episode. Um, yeah, okay. Thank you. Bye bye.